Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, and shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today? As we'll be talking about the game that I finished playing, I forgot, on Sunday on my live stream. If you haven't seen it, actually the VOD is not on Twitch. So you'll only be able to see this one when it gets uploaded to my channel this Sunday, mainly because I had to blur something in it, so, didn't publish a VOD. Yeah, but it's the game The Pedestrian, which is a game which I've been playing for the past little while, I suppose, on my Twitch channel. If you aren't already, please do follow me over there. But good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 11:18 p.m. on Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. So do follow me on Twitch if you want to. Currently, I only stream on Sundays at 2 to 5 p.m. GMT UK time, but people start watching more, people start following more, then I'll start streaming on more days, and probably one of the days will be one of the evening times for me, so a later day for maybe a more manageable time to watch for American viewers. Anyway, long and short, played a game called Pedestrian, which we'll be talking about today. And on the whole, I enjoyed it, is what I'd say. I think Pedestrian is... Pedestrian is... it seems fair. And I'm trying to think what to say. I'm not going to spoil anything big. There's not really much to spoil, because Pedestrian is basically, in its purest form, is just a puzzle game. There's not much of like a plot really going on, or if there is one, it's left rather ambiguous. There's not really like story beats or anything like that. The mechanics are not things which you would look at and be like, whoa, it blew my mind, right? This was a mechanic. It was like, this just seems like, oh yeah, this seems like a natural evolution of what could happen. Because really, I think the most mind-blowing mechanic is the sort of concept that you're introduced to at the beginning, and really, Pedestrian just has really, really nice presentation, to be honest. So I guess my short distilled summary review is it's just a really solid puzzle game experience if you're looking for one of those. It doesn't go insanely hard, I think. I think the hardest level is maybe the last or second last ish level, but even that's not that crazy difficult, to be honest, as far as puzzle games go. It's no Baba Is You, it's no Snake Bird or anything like that. It just, it might be one of the easier puzzle games I think I've played, because everything just basically feels so direct. There's only so many permutations. But anyway, let's dive into it. What makes Pedestrian so interesting? So really, it's a game about sort of navigating around and doing your best to reach the ending of the level. And what the Pedestrian has, it has this very strong aesthetic of basically using road signs about the place, or construction signs, or other sort of signs which you might realistically find about a living city, about the world. And you play as a small stick man or stick woman as you walk about the place, stick person I suppose, and you see that the signs are connected to one another, and then it's basically sort of like a 2D puzzle platformer, which is yeah, that's fine, that's nothing crazy, it's nothing that we've not seen before. But when it starts to get really interesting is when it starts introducing the concept of stepping backwards, I suppose, where it's not just you walking from sign to sign, but a core mechanic of this game is you make the connections between the signs. You start off by running off to the right of a sign, and it brings you to the next one, and you run down a ladder and it brings you to the next one. But then later on, the first major level that you have is you have the signs, and you need to draw the connection from one door to the other to determine which door teleports you where. And I'm that's pretty cool. And when I saw that, I was that's a cool concept for a puzzle game. But it feels it's sort of playing two puzzles overlaid on each other. One being the puzzle platform element of the stick person you control in the game, sort of running around, and then the other, the sort of meta element of the sign movements that you move around, and the linkage, which, as I say, is basically two reasonably simple puzzle mechanics intertwined together to make it an interesting dynamic. And that's basically the summary of what Pedestrian is, and then it like evolves upon it by introducing new mechanics here and there. But only one new mechanic I think really like changes things up in a huge way. The other things feel like relatively straightforward in my opinion, but it just does it very well. It's just a very nice, tight experience. And one of the main things is the fact that the Pedestrian has fantastic sort of like style for how it presents things. If like usual puzzle games where you go to like a level selector and you enter the level, it's like a PowerPoint slide, the Pedestrian is what I can only describe as Prezi, which if you've never used Prezi, then fair enough. But basically, the Pedestrian really uses its environments to its advantage, where instead of having a level select, you have your stick person run around off screen and then they'll run to the next level. But like how the game looks is you have like, you look from the eyes of like a camera which is moving about the world, and is basically as you get to the next sign it moves up to the next sign. So you'll be at like one side of a street and it'll be like in front of a cafe and you'll be on a chalkboard or something, and then like you walk off a chalkboard to like start in the direction of a road, and then like the camera will pan upwards to like a sign hanging off like the traffic lights or something, and then you do a puzzle there and it moves down to the right side and you start to see like a fallen over like road sign or something, and then you do something on that. It's very, very cool. It's very slick. Like I don't know how else to describe it except for it has very like sort of smooth tweens in between the transitions from sign to sign, which is really quite a visual, it's a lovely visual style is what I'd say. It's got such flair to it and it really is surprisingly immersive, all things considered. And there's like small things here and there which like are related to it, which also give off this like really nice, just like really tight aesthetic feeling that it has. And one major thing that I can think of is the fact that whenever you pause in the game, whenever you try and use a pause menu, it pauses to a TV screen, which you might be like, okay, so what? Well, the thing that's interesting about the TV screen pause is the fact that, I don't know why I said it like that, the fact that there are a load of TVs scattered around the place. I didn't actually put this together until after I looked it up. There are a load of TVs around the place, and then going towards one of the TV, whenever you pause, the camera will just shift its perspective to look at that TV and show the screen. So like it's all very diegetic, I guess is probably the word I want. Like the entire game is diegetic. And that's really cool. Like it's something which very much leans into its own aesthetic and knows what it's doing, and it honestly pulls it off exceedingly well. So what more can I say except for, you know, fantastic job. It's like a very immersive, it's a very entertaining and enticing game all the same. But what else can I say about it? Like I'm trying to think. Like it introduces some other mechanics here and there. Like one of the mechanics, I mean some of the earlier mechanics I can't even remember like what they are, because they just feel like very intertwined. Like one of them being something along the lines of, oh, you have like keys and doors you can unlock off. That seems like pretty straightforward. Another one being something like, let me think of a good example, because the later mechanics are ones which are good, so I'm trying not to spoil them. There's like buttons and levers, there's like lasers. Okay, so this is like a mild spoiler. I think one of the coolest mechanics in the game is that some of the signs later on basically have a hole in the sign, which means that because you can move the signs around and you can place them on top of each other before it's pointless. Now when you do it, because there's a hole in the sign, you can jump from the top layer sign into the bottom layer sign. And I'm like, that's really cool as a concept. It's like a doorway, or an alternative way of making a connection between the two signs. And later on it plays a lot with like space and restricted movement to like really make these like really nice feeling levels. Okay, all spoilers, all bets are off now. Like I could spoil anything from now on, so just be warned. If you want to play the game, stop the video, go play the game. It's worth it. I'd say it's like a very nice, sweet experience. You could probably finish it in like a weekend, maybe even an evening, depending on how quickly you try and sort of smoosh through it. But I think a very cool later on mechanic is the paint one, where basically you can use yellow paint on some of the signs, and it would basically remember everything, all the states of that sign. So like if you had the lever flipped, and you painted it yellow. Oh yeah, a mechanic I didn't say before that is once you made like a doorway and you go through that doorway, you can't unmake that doorway again, because it would just like reset everything. It teleports you back. Anything and everything basically gets reset once you break something which you've already used. But the yellow paint sort of flies in the face of that, because it remembers the state of everything in the sign. It like freezes it in place. So any levers which are flipped are like stay flipped. If you're in there, you will not get teleported back. And then you can do some really interesting sort of gameplay by like looping around and like using it as basically like a save state to try and solve a level. And that's when in my opinion, this is when I think the game went from like, oh yeah, this is a nice sort of like visual experience, to like, oh, these puzzles are actually like quite interesting now, in my opinion. There were some puzzles in earlier levels which I thought they were kind of interesting, but none of them I think really grabbed me until that mechanic came along, which is such a shame because it's right at the end of the game, so you only have a handful of levels to really enjoy it. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the cooler mechanics, to be perfectly honest. The one which made me sort of like sit up in my chair and be like, whoa, this puzzle game just got serious. So genuinely, it is a real shame that it doesn't stay, like, there isn't more levels afterwards. That's like, the only complaint I'd have a game is like, I wanted more. Like, I felt like it got cut off when I was like really like when I was really like digging the difficulty like level and ramping, and like I was really feeling, you know, the dopamine hits of when you solve a level, being like, oh yeah, I've earned this because I've like really understood and played with and spent the time to learn these mechanics. It's sort of just like, ooh, it felt like it stops it just a bit too short. Because the final level was actually like really, really cool, and I thought there was going to be like a series of maybe challenge levels exploring this mechanic. But major spoilers is towards the end, it introduces you to the mechanic of stepping back one more layer. So the first layer is you are controlling the stick person. The second layer, you step back, you are controlling the signs. The third layer, you step back, you are now controlling the camera. And it turns out you are basically in a first-person viewpoint this entire time, and you can move around. And the final level puts all three together, where you, as a stick person, are moving about in signs on one building top, and you moving the signs makes connections, but that makes connections as you the person, the camera, between different buildings, which from the top down, if you imagine it from an aerial perspective, is basically a one-to-one map of the puzzle, the level which the stick person is moving around in. And I was like, this is awesome, what a great like final mechanic to introduce to us. It really is mind-bending, and it's really difficult to think of, and I was like, I really love the difficulty. It has a lot of bite to it at this point, but unfortunately that is the final level of the game, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, like I think it is a very fitting finale level. Like, it's probably the hardest level and requires the most sort of thinking, because it really requires you to think like multi-layered strategy wise, which is why I loved it so much, because I'm like, this feels so unique for a game. Like, there might be a game where I've played something with a similar mechanic, but not one I can think of off the top of my head, where I was just like, this is like so interestingly unique, where like I just need to think of like several layers of detachment from itself to be able to put together how to beat this level, you know? I thought that was really cool. And it's a real shame that's when it stops. And then, like, at the ending is when you basically get the only lore you'll ever get throughout the game, which is like, oh, you are playing someone who is actually designing the levels, and they are, like, taking a break or something. It seems like we're going on holiday, they're escaping from the city. It never explains why there's no one in the city right now. It never explains why you're doing it. But it's honestly not a game which really needs it. It just, like, is neutral about it. Like, it's not a game which I think suffers because it doesn't have a story, but if it did have like a cool ongoing environmental story, which you can pick up subtly through like the environment as you move around, or it had secrets, maybe it does have secrets, I don't know, then that would be a thing which would be like, oh yes, this elevates a game to the next level, in my personal opinion. It's still great, don't get me wrong, but it just like, because it isn't that important, it's like that. It's like when games have like a little bit more polish or something to it. Like, it's what often people say is like the difference between like a AAA title and an indie title is maybe that polish. That feels like that could have been the polish for this game. It's just like, oh, just a little bit more, just a little bit of like environmental storytelling, which there might have been. Don't get me wrong, but almost certainly probably was, and I just like, it went way over my head. In which case, I only have myself to blame, really. But yeah, it just like, I don't know what else to say about it. It just like was a really nice experience, to be honest. It just, as I said before, it just did like exactly what it needed to do. It knew exactly what it wanted to do. Boom, did it well. Boom, bada bing, done. No, nothing more to it. and there's nothing more to it. So yeah, I don't know, it was just like a really nice game. Like I wish I had more to say, but there's not, like, apart from analysing the actual puzzle and levels themselves, which I think all the levels were well thought out, like they were quite structured. The only thing I would say is because you have so few limited movements, I felt like it was very telegraphed. Like for the first 80% of the levels, it was really telegraphed what the answer was, because it was like, I only have so many things I can do. So, and some things you can rule out for just being ridiculous, like just from a glance. I mean, you're just like, okay, well then that's just kind of it, isn't it? I just execute upon this and then that's done. Which I'm not saying is a bad thing. Because I think puzzle games are the sort of thing where you need games with a variety of different skill sets. You know, you need your bad reviews and you need your... I don't know what a simple puzzle game is off the top of my head. You need the variety because people need like an entry point, right? You need your Snakebird Primer. That's probably a good one. So yeah. What else to say about it except for, yeah, it was just like a really nice experience. The music... I generally don't remember it all that well. I had to be honest. Yeah, it's just like a short, satisfying game, to be honest. It is maybe a little bit expensive at £16 for most people, I think, for like about 3 hours of gameplay. But that's up to you. You know, I think it's probably worth it enough, but it's not the best deal you could get, I think, gaming-wise, at £16. But I think it's still very enjoyable. So I just want to see more from this concept, because it's basically the concept, if we're looking at it from a broad sense scale, is that it's like, oh, it's two levels of puzzle intertwined together. That's what every single puzzle is in that game, you know, the stick person level and the sign level. And then once I introduced a third dimension to that of the camera level, then I was like, this is where, oh, what a delicious expansion. Like this is the expansion I wanted on the core mechanics of this gameplay, you know. The other stuff was good, but that was like the real juicy like mechanic, and I really just wanted to see more. Like, if anything, that's the biggest shortcoming of this game, is it's just a bit too short. It just needs a bit too more. It'd be really nice if there was like some optional challenge levels or something. Like you could go off, like you could find a secret in the environment or something, and it trigger it, and you can go and try and solve a really optional difficult level or something. Like, that would, I think, would be cool. To be fair, I'm pretty sure it's indie dev. It had a pretty small dev team. I think it was kickstarted as well. So I don't blame them for not, you know, putting in every single thing for every single person, because that's honestly ridiculous. But I appreciate what we got in the first place. So yeah, what else to say about it? I think that basically rounds up my thoughts on the Pedestrian. I don't really think I have any more things to add to it. So I guess I'll just round this episode off here. Like, great game. Give it a shot. It's a very accessible puzzle game, in my opinion. But on that note, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope you see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.